that social media. We need to engage in the social media. We need to be responsive, even if there are, Bill Gates said, that we learn the most from our most unsatisfied customers. So sometimes you're going to get some unsatisfactory remarks on social media, and we don't want to hide from that. We want to address that, acknowledge it and address it, and maybe come back to it after, we've made some corrections or adjustments.
Mm-hmm. I know Richard always mentions to our clients, feedback is good, whether it's good or bad. Feedback, you take that and you analyze it. And, sometimes as a business, you need to really appreciate the negative feedback, because then you can enhance and improve your processes or your products, services, whatever it is. So feedback is your friend.
Absolutely. I have a thing I talk to people about. It's failing forward.
Yeah.
And, you go back to Edison and the light bulb, 10,000 tries, but he learned incremental ideas from each failure. He at least learned what didn't work. Okay, so that one's now checked off the list. We'll never come back to it. But it's such a process, and it takes time to focus on these and bring it through. And I don't know, from your standpoint, whether a lot of businesses allow this meditation time to really come forth in their business models.
I really believe in people, Richard, and I really think they would if they knew how.
Mm-hmm.
The businesses a lot of businesses and systems and nonprofits, all types of organizations that I work with, they would if they could. They feel they don't have time. That's always a factor. That's a perception. But, I'm here to say they don't have time not to. Because we see the failure rate. We look at economics and see what's happening. So you really do not have time not to focus on people. But they're like, well, how do we do it? How do we measure it? How can we justify it? And that's where I can help.
Definitely.
Help them do that. They really, I really think they're well-intentioned, and they do the best that they know how. My first position in the world, paying position, was I was an art history teacher. Now, art history is traditionally taught by rote memorization. Very myopic, very out of context, really not at all to do with the history portion. It's really like dates and times that art was produced, and locations and demographics. And you memorize these things and you spit them back, and that is how art history was, and really very often still is taught today. Then I had the experience of taking people on tours to Europe, on art history tours, on art tours. And I had a pivotal moment. I was only like 21, so I'm taking people from college to Europe, and I'm in charge. And so I'm talking eloquently in front of I think it was Notre Dame. And because I could see myself with my arm up in the air saying something. And I was teaching at a junior college, so I had quite an age range of students, like 18 to 60-year-olds. And I'm a mere, little thing of 21 there. And I forgot a date. I forgot something. And wouldn't you know it, it's the 18-year-old boy that says, hey, you made us memorize that on a test. And I paused, right? He's going to spot me out. And now this was a really pivotal point in my life. It changed the trajectory of everything I did after that. So I'm very happy of that critical customer that he said this to me. And I paused, and it was like probably a few seconds, but it felt like, my whole life flashed before me, because I have all these people standing in front of me listening to me. And I said, you know what? You're right. I'm going to think about that. And so I went off that night, and I literally cried in my soup. I mean, literally, and thought about what does this mean? And what I decided was, it meant that the way that type of teaching method isn't really about learning, and it really isn't drawing on my resources. Who did I have there? I had people that knew all kinds of things about the world that I didn't know. I'm just 21. I had a lot of older people in the class. I had people that, had diverse backgrounds. So the next day I came back and I said, we're going to approach it differently. And I went into what is now one of my belief statements of learning and growing with and for each other. And so then we would just have discussions. We'd land at a place. Everyone would discuss what they knew of what they remembered from class or what they remembered. And then these other people that have, lived lives and have history behind them could tell us, well, what was happening in China at this time? What was happening other places? So they brought in a lot. So it became so much more rich by drawing on the people in the class and focusing on them.
It sounds like
not trying.
Definitely a good lesson for you, and it sounds like you've taken that, and that's where you have built your business that you're doing today. On teaching the people process.
One of my it is.
I love it.
It is very much so, one of the pivotal points. Mm-hmm. So I think now we're on reason number 3.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
So we talked about this a little bit about relationship building creates customer and staff retention. So why is that so important? So studies show that at minimal, acquiring a new customer or client costs 5 to 7 times as much as keeping an existing one. Now that's a pretty conservative number, actually. And customer loss, I don't know if people know this, but just natural attrition to customer loss every year is at least 25%. Wow. People drop off. So you have to grow by 25%, you have to grow your business 50% just to grow by 25%. So building those relationships improves that number. So when we increase that number and we keep, retain staff and clients, just the retention alone without them bringing in more to us saves a lot of money. So there's a lot of cost there. So reason 4 I'll go on to, relationship building means gathering data from our market. So like I said about Bill Gates, and, so we need to ask significant questions of our market and find out from them. And like you said, Cheri, not be afraid of that. And I even avoid using the word bad. Use the word whether it's good or whether it's bad. It's just feedback. And we can take that feedback and categorize it and put that into different areas and then, make decisions based on that feedback. Because really, none of it is necessarily bad. It's all just feedback. Because maybe some of the good, what would be called good feedback, might not help us grow. It might or it might not. So we just have to use a systems analysis approach and determine where we're going and what the feedback is telling us. So that gathering that data on people, though, is the portion that most businesses don't know how to do. They don't know how to gather that. And they don't know how to set out goals for people with positive outcomes for them to reach. They're used to, how are we taught in school? We're punished more than we're praised, right?
It's so unfortunate, but that is so true. Yes.
So we copy that. We copy what we know. If we don't know more, we can only do up to what we have already experienced or the best that we know how to do. So if we don't know means of positive reinforcement or positive behavior change or creating positive environments and systems and structures that allow people to flourish in those positive ways, then we can't do it. But once we're taught how to do that, then we can improve. Mm-hmm. So I just am a firm believer in data, and that all data we can use for improvement. And I think you guys agree with that, right?
I definitely do.
You're a believer in that.
Me too.
Yeah, we've always been that way. Yes.
Yeah. So sending out those surveys and when I do speaking engagements or anything that I do, I want feedback from this radio show. I would like feedback from that. And I'm going to give a call for that at the end and tell people how to give feedback. And, and I'm going to reward that feedback.
Feedback.
Oh, yeah. Because whenever we ask people to do something, if they do what we ask them to do, we should reward them.
Very good point.
Very
good point.
Mm-hmm. So reason number 5 is relationship building will multiply your network exponentially. So it isn't a 1 + 1 = 2. So let's say the average person has about 250 people in their personal or business network. It might be larger, might be smaller, but if we just take that average of 250. And if you're a business owner, you might have, of course, more than that. The point here is that every person, has, let's say, an average of that in quality relationships. And you have now this opportunity to include that 250 people in your network. So if you have this 250 people, and how many do they have? If everybody on average has 250, they have 250.
Mm-hmm.
And then how many does the next 250 in their network have? They have another 250. So now this number is bigger than I can count by now, right?
Yes.
So
it's huge.
It's huge. So if we think of it that way, only to 3, I think it gets up to 62,000, like only 3 levels. So now we have this huge network of people. So now how valuable, when you think of it that way, in a data numbers way, how valuable is that relationship building? With the 80-20 rule added in there, value, 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 ask, giving, 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 ask. When we do that, then those people, that network that they have, comes back to you. So that's like the most valuable marketing and attention that you can have. So we stay in touch with these people in this technological age with a lot of systems that we can access and tools. Here's one way. We're on the radio, staying in touch with people and talking to people, right?
Yes.
So, having that open, and you asked at the very beginning for a dialogue, for feedback from people on the Facebook page, so to continue that conversation and to hear from them. People really, really like that model. So that's my five tips, my 5 top important ways why relationship building really brings returns in terms of that prosperity or profit. It brings a lot of warm fuzzies too, a lot of good feelings,
mm-hmm.
but there's actual monetized things, actions that we take that are monetized in business that brings those returns in terms of profits to us.
And to me, this is, with your 5 reasons or tips, however one wants to call them, it really is a great model for a business to follow if they're struggling with maybe not bringing the sales that they desire into their company. Maybe they need to rethink why and start.
And that's actually why I call them reasons, because they want to know, everybody wants to know. What's in it for me, right? That famous radio station, WIFF.
Yep.
So, yeah, what's in it for me? And we should know that. We should analyze that and determine. But these are solid reasons that have measurable returns that for adding relationship building into a business.
Mm-hmm. Now, are there a few companies that have built their success on that people first focus in their business plan that you have either
there's some that I
helped?
just love.
Or
there's some that I really, really like a lot. So, this economy, like right now, there's reports out that 70% of the adult population is concerned about their financial future. We feel we're in pretty unstable economic times, and But this challenge, I think, also represents our greatest opportunity. You know,